Last week we started speaking about Kirtan, its origin, what the purpose of it is. So, as I was saying, each week we want to dive just a little bit deeper, or if you like, maybe a better way to understand it is, it's like a beautiful gem, a beautiful diamond that has many facets to it. So, as you turn a beautiful gem, a beautiful diamond, and the light catches it, and there's different facets or angles of it, that's really what Kirtan is, the benefits, the beauty, the experience of Kirtan. So before speaking, as we do every time, I'd like to take a moment in prayer and reflection and gratitude to thank my spiritual master and the great rishis and sages for this gift of yoga, of Kirtan, of this yoga wisdom. And I'm hoping that I may be able to share just a little glimmer, just a small drop of this treasure of yoga with you all. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Iti Namini Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So just briefly touching on what we spoke about last week, we were reading from the sacred yogic or Vedic text about how Kirtan actually is the real treasure of the whole yoga system. Of all of the many wonderful gifts that yoga brings into people's lives, the greatest treasure is the treasure of Kirtan, or this group or congregational chanting and singing of these names of the Supreme. How this brings about the greatest benefit. Removal of fear and worries and so many troubles from the mind and the heart. And it actually makes self-realization possible for every single one of us. Whatever our religious background might be, something or nothing at all, whatever our status in life may be, whatever our age, Kirtan is for everyone. We can all tap into this mine, this vein of this gold of transcendental sound, particularly in the form of Kirtan or Sankirtan, group hearing and chanting of the holy names. So this is the ultimate benefit, the ultimate outcome of practicing Kirtan regularly, is we can actually come to that platform of what in yoga is called samadhi, that higher spiritual experience of union or connection with the divine, with the Supreme Soul, and how we are divine in the sense that we are spirit soul, we are jiva atma, small spark of spiritual energy, and we all have an eternal bond or connection of love with the param atma, or the Supreme Soul. And ultimately this is the goal of yoga. So we want to dive a little bit more, like I said, show a little bit more of the facets, the beauty of Kirtan. Everybody likes to sing. Everybody likes to listen to singing. There is also a natural tendency to want to dance, isn't there? Unfortunately, or in the material experience of singing and dancing, sometimes you have to get a bit drunk or a bit stoned, to let yourself be free enough to dance. Did anyone else experience that as a gawky teenager, showing up at a dance somewhere or a disco or something like that, and had to have a few shots of something before you went into the darkened dance floor? Because there's this feeling of being judged, that people might think, you're a bit of a gangly weirdo. But when you're a little bit stoned or drunk, then, you feel a little bit freer. So this tendency to want to sing, this tendency to want to be free and to dance freely is not springing from our mind or from our body, or any part of our physical makeup, it is actually the nature of the soul. It is your true nature to be free. We touched on this a little last week. By nature, each one of us is free from worries, free from problems and entanglements and fear, particularly the fear of death, being free from loneliness that we can experience. This is what we're all looking for. And this is what the regular practice of engaging in this meditation known as Kirtan brings to each one of us, because that is our real nature. There's a nice example that's given in the yogic teaching that, if we want to have a nice, refreshing feeling, maybe we've been working in the garden, or maybe the job is working outside and it's hot, and you get sweaty, then how do we relieve ourselves of the fatigue of working and getting hot and sweaty and smelly and all of that stuff? Or to want to clean, maybe you've been making some sweets or something, and you've been using, I don't know, maybe you've been using like maple syrup or something like that, and it gets all sticky on our hands, right? You don't kind of remove the dirt, or the stickiness just by rubbing your hands together, right? It doesn't do it. You can't do it yourself like that. What do we do? How do we relieve the dirt and the sweat and or the stickiness from our hands or our body? What do we do? You use water. You can throw some soap in there. So it's through the agency of the soap and the water. Simply by applying it, it actually takes away the stickiness or the dirt. So in a similar way, to use that as an analogy, our heart and mind are troubled. It's full of so much material trouble, conditioning, as I said, the different worries and stresses of life. That my mind is driving me crazy, the fear of the future, fear of death, the loneliness, all of these things are like this accumulated pollution that is covering our heart and our mind in our journey through this life. So how do we relieve ourselves of this? According to the Vedic or yogic text, it is actually very easy, and we cannot do it ourselves. It is in the form of Harinama. This means the names of the Supreme Soul. And as we touched on last week, we're not speaking about a Hindu God or a Christian God or a Muslim God or a Buddhist truth or a Jewish truth. We're talking about the Supreme Soul, the cause of all causes, the original source of everything and everyone, including you, including me. This one supreme original cause is known by many, many different names through the different traditions, cultures, and religions of the world since time immemorial. And we also understand, I don't know if we read this last week, I'll read this now. There is a yogic Vedic text called the Padma Piranha. This is one of the famous spiritual texts. And in there it is said, there is no difference between the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself. As such, the holy name is as perfect as the Lord, in fullness, purity, and eternity. The holy name is no material sound vibration, nor has it any material contamination. So there is no difference between these transcendental names, these divine names, and the divine. So when we are in contact with transcendental sound of these divine names, we are in direct contact with the all-pure and the all-purifying. So it is these divine names, this transcendental sound, which actually washes away all of the pollution and the troubles from the heart and the mind. So in the same way that simply coming into contact with soap and water, can relieve the fatigue of the body and make the body clean and fresh. Similarly, we, the Atma, the pure soul, when our real nature is Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of wisdom and blissful by nature, that is the nature of every single living being, but there is this covering, this pollution which is weighing us down in our journey through this life. So the purifying nature of the Transcendental Sound, the holy name, relieves us of all of this fatigue, fear, worries, concerns, and loneliness, because we have an eternal bond of kinship, of friendship with the Supreme. And this gradually, step by step, as we immerse ourselves and take shelter in these divine names, then we will actually experience, through direct experience, direct personal experience, the reality of the benefits. So there was also a couple of other nice things that I was going to read, to share with you. That's not it, it's a little further here. Somewhere. Yeah, here it is. There is another Purana in the Vedic sacred text called the Garuda Purana. And in there it also stresses, the hearing of the holy names and its effect. The state of conditioned life in the material world is just like a man lying unconscious, having been bitten by a snake. This is because both such unconscious states can be ended by the sound of a mantra. And then there's a commentary on this. When a man is snake bitten, he does not die immediately, but first becomes unconscious and remains in a comatose condition. Anyone who is in the material world is also sleeping because he is ignorant of his actual self, his actual spiritual identity, duty, and his relationship with the Supreme. So materialistic life means that one is bitten by the snake of Maya or illusion. So in this sense, practically, he is dead. Now the so-called dead man bitten by a snake can be brought back to life by the chanting of some mantra. Similarly, one can be brought back into his natural loving condition or relationship with the Supreme from this deadly unconscious state of material life by the hearing of the holy names of the Supreme. So this is a very apt example or analogy. Apparently there are still people in India who have this ability to bring a person who has been bitten by a snake and is in this unconscious condition. There are certain Vedic mantras that actually bring the person out of that state of unconsciousness and revives them. So similarly, we are traveling through this life bitten by the snake, so to speak, of what is known as Avidia, or ignorance of our real nature. We are falsely identifying this body as being ourself. We think this world is our home. We think this is a permanent place, and we can find true happiness in the experiences in this world. But this is not true. This is not the fact. We are spirit soul, aham brahmasmi. I am spirit. I am eternal. I am not material. As we said before, we have an eternal connection with the Supreme Soul. So it is in that relationship, that eternal, loving relationship, this is our natural state. And in that state, we revive our true nature, Sat, eternal, Chit, full of wisdom and blissful. So these mantras, or these names of the divine, as we chant them, gradually our consciousness is purified of this avidya, or ignorance, which is at the root cause of our suffering and our misidentifying ourselves with this temporary material body and temporary material world. So this is, again, delving deeper into what the effect of Kirtan is and the benefits of regularly engaging in it. And you will find, and this is my experience, as I mentioned last week, not only did I not like Kirtan when I first came across it, I hated it. I found no attraction to it at all. But philosophically, so to speak, I understood the benefit of what the benefit of it may be. And now I'm a chanting fool. Anyone who's seen me, bad voice, bad guitar playing and all, being exhausted sometimes, can't stop me. Once that starts, I'm in there. Because there is a gradual and a natural attraction for these beautiful names develops in a person in the same way as a bee is attracted to honey. It's natural. Those two are meant to be together. Similarly, we, as part of the Supreme Soul, we are naturally and spontaneously in our awakened condition attracted to the beauty and the sweetness of the divine names. But in the beginning, that may not be experienced because we are covered by this avidya, or this ignorance. So it's a matter of making a decision. Yes, I will try this. Let me see what the result is. So just to maybe conclude, to pull it together a little bit, maybe we'll go here first. Most weeks, you might chant about 4 or 5 different names in various combinations on 2 hours of a Sunday. Hare, Krishna, Rama, there's 3. Maybe Gopala, Govinda, there's 5. Nitai Gaur, 6. There's not a lot. Like most songs, pop songs have a lot more than 6 or 7 or 8 words in them, right? Some have 6 or 7 or 8, well, they used to call it bubblegum pop songs back in the 60s and 70s. But how is it that week after week, after year, after decade, we can sing these 6 or 7 or 8 lyrics? Because these are not ordinary sounds. Material or mundane sounds become stale after some time. Is that not true? If you think of your favourite song, whatever it might be. You could even think of your favourite album, whatever it might be. Like, for a long time, and one of the most popular and played songs of all time is Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. But, sometimes I'll go into a guitar shop just to look around and to browse. And if you pick up a guitar in a music shop, they have a sign, "You are barred from playing Stairway to Heaven." You are not allowed to play that because it's one of the first songs that aspiring guitar players learn is Stairway to Heaven. But the guys in the shop are so sick of it, they cannot stand to hear it one more time. So this is the nature of material sound. Becomes stale, like everything material. There is no life force. There is nothing spiritual about it. It has an attraction to the mind and to the ears and things, but actually it doesn't touch me, the soul. But spiritual sound vibration, because it is of the same nature as me, the spirit soul, walking around in this body, there is a natural attraction for it. And there is a natural attraction springing from each one of us, from the soul, from you, who you are. We like to have rhythm. This is the soul, the self. You like rhythm. We like melody. We like different rhythms and different melodies. This is springing from the soul, from the self. When that's projected through the false identification with the body and the material mind, it manifests itself in different music, types of music, different lyrics and things and melodies of material sound vibration. But we can only listen to that for a certain amount of time before we get sick of it. So similarly, spiritually, we are also attracted to different melodies and different rhythms and beats. So we can have that. We can spiritualize this natural attraction for music, for dance. But it is a natural dance. And when we, the self, the Atma, are moved from within by this attraction for the transcendental sound, then we also don't experience this fear that I will look funny when I dance, because we are entering into a whole nother experience, a spiritual experience. And we lose that identification with the body as being me and other people judging me and how I look and how I move and all of those things. They are all gone because I am now situated on that transcendental platform of the freedom of the soul, of the self. So we can dance free, freely, with freedom, and abandoned all of these worries. And we don't need to smoke this or drink this or shoot that. We simply need to take in the transcendental sound and we will experience it directly. So the reason why Kirtan is important, just to wrap up, we can finish and then have some more tonight. So just a little bit more of an understanding. These names are transcendental. They are actually names of the divine, of the supreme. And as the supreme is absolute, there is no difference between the holy name and the supreme. So as we come into contact with these holy names, we are in direct contact with the Supreme Soul, of whom we are part. These names, as the Supreme Soul is all pure and all purifying, therefore the transcendental names are all pure and all purifying. So this is where the effect. So again, this is like we're covered by the sweat and the dirt and the fatigue of material existence, and bathing in these transcendental names removes, pardon me, removes all of this, and we are now free. I think that's meant to be the end. Thank you so much.